Hello everyone, my name is Arianna and I am a homeschooling mother of two. I want to share with you today my story, our family story on how we came about homeschooling. Before our children were born, my husband and I had discussed homeschooling and we knew that it was something that we wanted to do. However, when our first daughter was born, it became a little tricky to try to figure this out because we were both working full time. I was working as a paralegal for a very busy judge, and he was working for the post office. So pretty soon we realized that we would have to do this on the weekends, with our children. And so we did it that way for a few years, and it wasn't until my daughter got closer to 5 years old, I think when she was around 3 is when I began to feel a sense of urgency to come up with another plan. We discussed leaving the area that we were living in at the time. We were living in the New York City area, and as you all know, the cost of living in the East Coast is astronomical. So very quickly we realized that it would be very difficult for us to live on one income. So we basically made a very radical decision. We decided to leave that area and move more west. It was a long process for us. It took us a few years to actually visit certain areas and come to the decision of, okay, this is where we want to be. And we settled upon Kentucky. As strange as it sounds, we love it here actually. But going back to my story, we realized that the cost of living here is cheaper. You get a lot more land for your money as compared to New Jersey or New York. And we wanted to rear our children closer to nature because that's just kind of what I've always wanted for them. My daughter, since she was young, expressed a desire to work with animals. And so we wanted to be in a position to encourage that and nurture that in her. And so in 2012, gave my notice at my job, and the very next day after I, clocked out, we basically got in our vehicles and we drove here. And we've been here ever since, and it honestly has been the best decision that we've made as a family, primarily because we have watched our children flourish in this environment. I initially had my doubts in my ability to homeschool my children. There's some days that, you kind of second guess yourself. For me, it's never about should I send them to school, because that's not an option for us. But it's more about am I doing it the right way? And I think if you're new at homeschooling, you kind of realize that there is no right way. What works for your family may not work for another family. And I think that's really the beauty of homeschooling, that you get to set your standards based on how your children learn. And one of the things that my husband and I, in maintaining our love for homeschooling and also making sure that it's always a priority in our lives, we always go back to the type of human beings that we're trying to raise. My husband and I are not traditional in terms of our beliefs and our value system. We always kind of go against the grain. And one of the things that we want for our children is for them to be free thinkers. We recognize that the school system, there's an agenda, and a lot of children do thrive despite of the agenda. But for our children and for the type of humans that we want to create or nurture, we want them to be free thinkers. We want them to realize that they're sovereign and they get to decide the course that their life takes, and that there are a lot of skills that children are not being taught in school that only can be derived from that family environment or that community. So for example, my daughter, as I expressed earlier, she loves animals. From a very young age, she's expressed that she wants to have her own animal rescue center. And so that's something that my husband and I have focused on forever, to the point that she just recently started her own little business to get her closer to that dream. And I know that if my daughter were in the public school system, she learns differently. She's very creative. She is very artistic. She loves singing. She's a self-taught. She plays the piano on her own. She taught herself. She is an artist. She is just creative, and she has a light about her. And I love that. I love that when she's here home with her family, she feels safe and she can express herself and do things that she might not be able to do in a different learning environment. And so that is extremely important for us as parents. We want our children to always have a love of learning. And it's the same thing for our son, Malachi. He's going to be 9 soon, and he is an avid gamer. And, that's not encouraged in the schools, obviously, because, screen time and all that. And we do limit that. But I recognize that that's a passion that he has. So rather than say no, we've turned it into something educational. He has taught himself how to code, and we have a program that he uses where he basically creates cartoons. And I mean, it's impressive for me because I never thought that that was even possible. But we, as homeschoolers, we try to find opportunities where we can basically give them the tools that they need to be who they want to be. And I think that's really, that's our job for our family. That's how we view our role as parents, to facilitate and to enhance their experience and to allow them to blossom into whatever it is that they feel called to do. Another reason why we homeschool is for the emotional intelligence and the life skills that can be gained from being close to your family. That's something that when I look around, I feel is extremely lacking in kids today. Many children spend 18 years in a classroom, and then when they graduate, they don't know how to function in the real world. They don't know how to communicate without showing anger. And not that anger is an inappropriate emotion. All emotions are valid, but learning how to navigate through them in a way that shows that you have integrity and you can show respect and all that stuff. That's something that's very important for us to show our children and to model for them. And so being able to homeschool my children, I get to have these conversations with them where I can kind of sense where they are and what needs attention. My daughter is, entering puberty, and so many of our conversations surround sexuality and body autonomy and self-awareness, self-respect, and even my son. So these are things that I know they would not get if they were in a public school setting. And granted, it is the parent's role to instill these things in children, but most parents are working, both working full time, and so leaving it to the school system, then we kind of really don't know what type of information they're getting, how they're being influenced by their peers. And so for us, for our family, homeschooling really allows for us to kind of stay connected to our children and really encourage them and kind of guide them in the areas that we feel they might need a little more attention in. So for our family, it's primarily because we want our children to be free thinkers. We value entrepreneurship. We always tell our children, before you work for someone else, we would rather you have your own business, create your own opportunity, and then create opportunities for other people. And so again, with my daughter just starting her own business, this is something that she has seen me do for years. And so to her, there's just no other way of being. You create, you contribute in your community so that the lives of those around you can be improved. And so I think that it's an amazing gift to give to your children. I think if I've done anything right as a mother, it's really encouraging my children to be good human beings, to be kind, to be loving, show love regardless of who they're dealing with. And I think that if you are on the fence about homeschooling, hopefully this will encourage you to see that we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different circumstances, and even when the circumstance seems challenging and in your mind you might be thinking this is not something that I can do, if you want that for your children and you want that for your family, you create it and you can certainly make it happen. So I hope this was encouraging to you. Thank you, Camille, for the opportunity. I love you, and I hope that this is well received by your audience. Take care. Bye-bye.